There's a reason World War II field manuals were packed tightly into the pockets of soldiers who had to cross forests, deserts, bombed cities and enemy-held countryside without the luxury of modern navigation gear. You know, those old field manuals weren't just for show. They were trusted companions, packed with essential know-how for surviving and finding your way when things got really tough. When a soldier became separated from his unit or cut off during reconnaissance, he couldn't rely on electronics or detailed maps. He had to depend on simple techniques that were reliable in every climate, every season, and every level of visibility. Among those methods was one navigation trick so dependable that it became standard instruction across Allied and Axis armies. And the remarkable part is that it still works today, no matter where you are in the world. Whether you're a bushcraft enthusiast, a prepper, or a student of military history. This World War II compass technique is one of the most practical survival skills you can add to your mental toolkit. Soldiers learn to determine direction by using shadow movement. During World War II, when a soldier was lost or operating without a compass, one of the most reliable navigation tools was the movement of shadows cast by the sun. So, let's talk about the precision of shadow movement. This method became a critical skill for many during the war, and it really made a difference in survival situations. This wasn't a vague idea. It was a precise technique taught to infantrymen, medics, scouts, and aircrew who might be forced to evade behind enemy lines. The Earth's rotation is constant, and because of that, the shadow cast by a stick or rifle in daylight always moves from west to east. That predictable motion gave soldiers a way to determine cardinal directions with surprising accuracy. To apply this in a modern context, all one needs is a straight object such as a stick, a trekking pole, or even the spine of a sturdy knife. Place it vertically into the ground. Then mark the tip of the shadow with a small stone. Wait 10 to 15 minutes, then mark the new position of the shadow tip. Draw a line between the two marks. That line always runs west to east, with the first mark being west and the second being east. Drawing a perpendicular line gives you a north-south orientation. This simple technique can be used anywhere sunlight reaches, and because it relies on movement rather than guesswork, it avoids common mistakes that occur when trying to identify direction by instinct alone. During World War II, survival instructors really emphasized the importance of understanding why a method actually works. Soldiers weren't just told to memorize a set of steps. No, they were taught to grasp the principle behind them. For example, the sun travels across the southern sky in the northern hemisphere, and across the northern sky in the southern hemisphere. But regardless of which hemisphere you're in, the shadow's movement is always consistent. It shifts eastward. So, let's talk about the benefits of understanding this principle. When you know why something works, not just how, you're way better prepared to adapt and succeed, even if things don't go exactly as planned. What this really meant was that even if a soldier found himself in completely unfamiliar terrain, he could still orient himself without needing to know any local landmarks. And honestly, modern preppers can benefit from that same mindset. Understanding the underlying mechanism makes the trick a lot more reliable, especially in stressful situations where your memory might let you down. It also helps you adapt when conditions aren't perfect, such as when dealing with uneven ground, partial cloud cover, or short daylight windows. For example, if you're hiking and realize you've strayed off trail, setting up the shadow method takes minimal effort and brings clarity before panic sets in. The more consistently someone practices it, the faster and more natural it becomes. WWII training fields ran drills repeatedly so that soldiers could execute the entire process in under 15 minutes, even under pressure. WWII fieldcraft wasn't meant for ideal weather. Soldiers often had to operate under haze, smoke, cloud cover, and winter sunlight. When shadows were faint, the trick still worked by increasing the size of the stick or the length of the shadow to exaggerate the movement. Sometimes, poor weather can make it a real challenge to navigate or keep your bearings out in the field. When visibility drops or shadows become faint, it's important to adapt your techniques and stay resourceful. A rifle held upright, a bayonet plunged into the soil, or even a tall branch could create a long enough shadow to track, even with limited visibility. Modern outdoorsmen can apply the same adaptation. When conditions weaken shadow contrast, just build a taller stick setup and use lighter-coloured marking points to track movement more easily. This technique also proved valuable when travelling through open terrain, like desert or tundra, where landmarks were, pretty scarce or even non-existent. Rather than relying on distant ridges or tree lines, soldiers depended on the sun's movement to re-establish their heading every few hours. You can do the same today when moving through large, repetitive landscapes. If you've been following a particular bearing, say eastward, you can periodically reset your direction with the shadow method to ensure you're maintaining a straight route, even if you make a few minor deviations along the way. WWII escape and evasion training warned soldiers that the human sense of direction becomes unreliable when tired, hungry, or stressed. People naturally drift left or right when trying to walk in a straight line. The shadow compass provided an objective reference point. Preventing directional drift is honestly a real challenge. When you're out there, your sense of direction can fool you, especially if you're exhausted or anxious. That's why using reliable methods, like the shadow compass, becomes so important. Modern preppers should understand this because even skilled outdoorsmen often underestimate how easily directional drift accumulates over long distances. By stopping at intervals, every hour or two during a long hike, and rechecking direction using the shadow method, you develop a consistent path that prevents wasted energy and reduces the risk of circling back into danger. Soldiers used it not only when lost, but as a routine navigation reinforcement technique. The World War II shadow compass remains effective because it requires nothing except time and awareness. In a world full of digital tools, it's easy to forget that some of the most dependable survival methods come from an era when people had to solve problems with nothing but the environment. The shadow compass remains one of the simplest, most universally applicable navigation techniques known. And, its reliability has been proven under battlefield stress. You know, when you compare today's digital tools with traditional survival methods, it becomes clear that sometimes the old ways really do hold up. There's just something about mastering skills that don't depend on technology. If you're building your urban or wilderness survival skills, mastering this method gives you a fallback system that never breaks, never fails, and never runs out of battery. Honestly, it's a skill worth adding to your toolkit. If you found this exploration of World War II navigation skill useful, make sure you subscribe to Echoes of Valor for more historically grounded survival insights. And hey, share this video with others who appreciate real, field-tested knowledge passed down through generations.